There's been a lot said about Samsung not really giving us anything new on the Galaxy S25 Ultra. Pretty much the same cameras as we've had since the S23 Ultra, the same display as the S24 Ultra, and arguably the worst S Pen experience we've had in a very long time. But after spending a couple of weeks with the S25 Ultra, I just feel like this is a bit of a bigger upgrade than people have given it credit for. Now, I'm not saying if you have an S24 Ultra, an S23 Ultra, or maybe even an S22 Ultra, that you need to go out and pick one of these up, because if your phone still does everything you need, then just save your money. But if you are upgrading from something older, another Android or maybe a non-Ultra Samsung phone, then there really is nothing better than the S25 Ultra right now. Let me start off with a couple of things that I really like. Now, the new design, I love it. It's not as curvy as a Pixel and it's not as pointy as the S24 Ultra, so it's got this really nice middle ground. And it's much lighter as well, which doesn't usually mean much, but it does make a difference when you're holding it all day. And those camera rings, I know they've gotten a lot of hate and they're mostly aesthetic, but I think they look really cool. And can we just talk about how nice this jade green is on the S25 Ultra? Now, I know it's an online exclusive, but it's by far the best color. And let me just talk to you about my favorite part of the entire phone, and it is the display. I love this. It is such a nice experience, and it's by far my favorite on any phone. For a start, if I'm traveling and I can only take one phone with me for watching content, it's the S25 Ultra. The main reason is the anti-reflective coating. Like if I'm on a train or anywhere that has direct sunlight, it's just not an issue. And I love the display so much that I've even been tempted to play a couple of games on this, which is a rarity for me. And before you say it, I know this is the same display as last year, but I love the display on the S24 Ultra and I love the display on the S25 Ultra, so it genuinely is great. It does though this year seem a little bit more like Samsung is giving us more software tweaks than hardware, and the biggest one of those is One UI and of course Galaxy AI. One UI 7 I feel like is a bit of a refinement of One UI 6, but it has made the Galaxy S25 Ultra feel completely different, and it's the refresh that we needed. There's a few changes to icons which I think look great. There's a new app drawer which looks much better than the old left and right swipe, and the new quick settings menu which has taken me a little bit of time to adjust to as it's now a split notification panel, but I kind of like it. I do wish that Samsung would have added titles to the quick panel toggles here, because sometimes I just get a bit confused about what is what as I'm going through these. And one question, I've swiped down loads looking for a calculator quick toggle and it isn't there. Like, what's going on, Samsung? And that calculator quick panel toggle has actually forced me to use edge panels for the first time. And I'm actually a big fan of these because it lets me hide those distracting apps like TikTok and YouTube Studio so that they're away from that home screen. But if I do need to get to them quickly, I just swipe in from the side. One UI 7 though has really made you forget that hardware-wise, Samsung has played it safe this year. And I have always thought that One UI was almost there, and this year I actually think it might just be the best Android OS you can get. A lot of what makes One UI 7 great though is Galaxy AI, and I know Samsung have pushed this as a huge selling point, but actually they've done such a good job of integrating it into the OS, and for the first time ever I'm actually starting to use features, and there's a couple here that I'm really on board with. Being able to search phrases in settings to get what you want is really useful because I like to play around with my phone, but sometimes I just don't know exactly what the setting is called. And then you've got Gemini extensions, which might be the first AI feature that I find useful because I can ask Gemini to go into my emails, find a trip for example, and add it to my calendar, which just eliminates a lot of the problem for me. And then you've got Now Brief, which I've used pretty much every day since using the S25 Ultra, probably a couple of times a day just to see how it works. And my problem with this is I don't find it that useful. So for example, it just shows me what the weather is, and then it'll show me how I slept, but it never shows me how I slept quick enough in the morning. It's always mid-afternoon, and I can't get the news toggle to work no matter how much I try, so I never see it, and it's just not been that useful yet. Now, I know it's meant to learn your usage over time, but so far I've got mixed feelings on it, giving me random Spotify playlists and then at night suggesting that I doom scroll through YouTube Shorts. I just don't think is that useful. What I prefer a little bit more is the Now bar in One UI 7, and this is something that I've found genuinely useful pretty much every day. I actually didn't like it at first, but the more I use it, the more I like it. It's easy to reach at the bottom of the screen, and I love its integration with sports from Google to give me me live updates when I can't actually watch a Liverpool game that I want to watch. It gives me all that information there, and it also gives me stats on the game, which I think is great. Then there's a few other Galaxy AI features like article summary, which I've used a few times, but sadly only works in Samsung's internet browser. But when I've used this, it's actually really fast. I don't want to pretend like I have used all these AI features for a review, because in the 2 weeks that I have it, I just haven't. And I feel like a lot of people that will use this phone probably won't use a lot of those AI features as well, even if they are integrated really well. One that I have used a few times is Object Eraser, and I have to say, this is genuinely impressive how it can remove objects and make it look pretty natural. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure exactly how it works and how it made my face almost look like my face from behind these two phones. It's a little bit weird, but honestly, I do like it. Now, One UI 7 is going to come to all the Galaxy devices, and you can get it now as a beta on the S24 Ultra, and it will come to devices like the S23 Ultra eventually. I don't know when, but it will come. So it's not like you have to go and rush out and buy Samsung's new shiny $1,300 S25 Ultra to get all of these features, because eventually they will trickle down to all the Ultra devices. Now for cameras, and this is where Samsung have dragged their heels a little bit. It's the same 200 megapixel main sensor and 10 megapixel 3x telephoto that was on the S23 Ultra. Then it had the same 5x lens as we had last year on the S24 Ultra. And there is one change on the cameras, but it's not a huge change. Now the ultra wide has changed from 12 megapixels to 50 megapixels. And again, it's welcomed, but it's something that I think a lot of people aren't really going to notice a difference on. Now, I've always thought that the photos from Samsung were just a little bit too vibrant, but there is a little tweak in the processing now that makes this one of my favorite cameras. You still get the punchy, vivid Samsung-like look from all of its lenses, but I've noticed that they have toned down how punchy those photos look compared to last year's Ultra, and I'm glad of that, because now they're a little bit more real to life. And you can see the difference here comparing a few shots from the S24 Ultra to the S25 Ultra, and I really like what Samsung have done here. The main lens still gives you some really nice dynamic range, and it captures some really nice details as well, whilst not over sharpening that image. And it can even make my trip to a wet, miserable London even look like it was fun. And I know this is not the best camera you can get in a phone right now, because you just have to look at Vivo for that crown, but this does a great job. The 3x and 5x lens I really like. Now, having the option to switch between focal lengths is always going to be a winner for me. And the photos, when you switch between those lenses, they look really similar. And I like the amount of details that you can get on these lenses. But I do feel like the 5x lens this year is marginally better. Shots at 10x actually look pretty good, and these pass is usable, but it's the same old story when you start getting to 30x, and if you dare stretch to that 100x, then you're doing it mostly for the gimmick rather than actually wanting to use those photos, because they are pretty bad. There's also now just improvements to the camera UI as well, so having to swap between lenses and change the settings is a lot easier, and it's come in really handy for me when I've been taking photos of everything with the S25 Ultra over the past couple of weeks. When we turn to video, I'm a big fan of Samsung's video this year. It seems to my eye at least marginally better than the S24 Ultra, and that stabilization seems to have got a small upgrade. Even if that's software based, it still looks really nice. What I like here is that the S25 Ultra seems to have upped its video game a little bit, and it's getting closer to the iPhone, which is hands down the best video you can get in any phone. And I would say that the S25 Ultra's video might be the best you can get on Android right now. And of course, when we're talking video, there's now the introduction of log, and this is only going to be for a small handful of people that will find it useful, but I am in that small handful of people, and I love it. With log, it just means that you shoot in a flat profile that captures more details than the regular way of shooting. So if you go into your video editor, you can make it look and feel a little bit more how you want. And I was always carrying around an iPhone with me because of needing to shoot in log, but now I can finally never have to carry an iPhone around with me because this has everything that I need, so it's just making my life easier. And the best part of being able to shoot in log on the S25 Ultra is that Samsung let you add a LUT right in the gallery app, which you cannot do on the iPhone that also shoots in log. And something else that the S25 Ultra is better at is file sizes when you shoot in log. Like, they're huge on the iPhone, and on the S25 Ultra, they're just smaller file sizes, so you don't need any external storage to shoot log. Now, I need to play with log a little bit more over the next couple of months when using the S25 Ultra, but so far I'm pretty impressed and I'm really glad it's here. Let's talk about the misses though from Samsung this year. For example, we have the same battery and the same charging speed since the S22 Ultra. That's 4 years with no updates or changes. The likes of the OnePlus 13 have a 6,000 mAh battery and almost double the charging speeds compared to the S25 Ultra, and Samsung could have easily upgraded the battery and blew its competition out the water here, but they didn't. Now, having said that, the S25 Ultra does easily get me to the end of a day with about 20% left if I'm using full HD resolution, and a lot of this will be down to this Snapdragon 8 Elite just because it's more power efficient, and it seems to be that way across the board on every Snapdragon 8 Elite phone. My only battery complaint is when I switch to QHD resolution, because I feel like the phone just struggles to get close to the end of a day, and I know a couple of people have said the same, but I also know a lot of other people have said that their battery is fine. But there's a reason why I don't want to turn QHD resolution off even if I have to suffer battery loss. This is because without QHD Plus switched on, you don't get to use the Pro upscaler, which is enabled by default. And what the Pro upscaler is meant to do is just make details in videos that you're watching look a lot better, and I don't want to miss out on this by having QHD Plus resolution switched off. So there's a bit of a balancing act here, so I hope Samsung can fix this in an update, because at the moment it's actually a little bit annoying. There's also no Qi 2 magnets in the back of this phone, which I think is just a bit of a miss again for Samsung. I don't really want to go and buy a separate $40 case to be able to use my magnetic Qi 2 charging docks, and I know this is omitted from the S25 Ultra because of issues with the S Pen, but it would have actually been nice for Samsung to figure out a way around this. I mean, the phone is $1,300. I don't want to have to spend extra to get a case to use Qi 2. And the other big miss this year for about 1% of people was the S Pen, because Samsung have removed Bluetooth functions from that completely. Granted, I don't use the S Pen almost ever, so I'm not going to miss a lot of what they've removed, but removing Bluetooth from it for no real benefit is a strange move. Now, not being able to use air gestures or use the S Pen as a remote camera shutter for some people is going to be a real loss, and I know a lot of people didn't use it, but without a reason to get rid of it, I don't really see the point in having to take that Bluetooth away and making something that was unique about the S25 Ultra a little less unique. Personally, I think the S25 Ultra is exceptional and is most likely to be one of the best phones of the year, but this is definitely a year where Galaxy AI and round corners are the biggest selling point. I mentioned it earlier, Samsung have implemented Galaxy AI really well, and they're definitely on the right tracks, but they can't rely on AI alone to be the biggest selling point of a phone that costs $1,300. Just not enough people use AI for that to be the case. Don't get me wrong, this is still top of the tree for peak Android phones now, and it'll handle absolutely everything you throw at it and more. The cameras are great, and that new design does make this feel like a big upgrade, and I'm pretty sure for me that this is going to be my main phone for the rest of the year. But it is still mostly the same cameras, it's the same display, and it's kind of the same Samsung. There isn't a lot here to justify an upgrade over the S24 Ultra or the S23 Ultra, and if you are thinking about upgrading an S23 Ultra, maybe you want to just look at an S24 Ultra, because that will be a lot cheaper than having to go and buy the best and newest from Samsung. But let me know in the comments below. I'm curious if you did upgrade from the S24 Ultra to the S25 Ultra and what your reasons were for it. Now, before you head off, make sure you subscribe to the Android Authority YouTube channel, and if you do that, then I will see you in the next video.